Larry Holder, Jeff Duncan here with you. The Pelicans, their season is over, going down 4-1 in the Western Conference semifinals to the Golden State Warriors. And even though, say, games 4 and 5 weren't exactly the best performance for the Pelicans, look, they played well in Game 2. They played well in Game 3, obviously. They picked up a big win. But I just think in the scope of the season, and Anthony Davis didn't want to admit this right after the game, but I think the season was a success for the Pelicans, considering everything they overcome with the injury to Cousins, rebuilding a team basically twice. They had to figure it out with Cousins, and then they had to figure it out without him and with Nico Mirotic. I think the fact that they won the playoff series, got to where they were, I think even though Anthony Davis might think this right now, I think this season was certainly a big success for this franchise.
I agree 100%. I mean, considering the adversity they had to overcome and losing a key part of their team in DeMarcus Cousins and remaking the team, as you said, and the strength of the Western Conference. I mean, this wasn't the Eastern Conference, which is the Cleveland Cavaliers, the Boston Celtics, and the Six Dwarfs. I mean, this is a conference that is stacked 1 through about 10, and the Pelicans needed every one of their wins just to get into the playoffs. And, look, they had to overcome some adversity, and they went further than any other team in the history of the franchise since it moved to New Orleans. I mean, they matched as far as anyone's ever gone. So it has to be considered a huge success. And I think the key for this team is that it kind of reinvigorated interest in basketball in the city. For the first time, people were excited about the Pelicans, and that is a significant achievement for the organization.
And also, look, we know that the talk of the future of DeMarcus Cousins and Rajon Rondo are going to be in full mode for a couple of months now. But put those two guys aside for a second. I think you've seen a maturation from Anthony Davis. You've seen a maturation to a huge extent for Drew Holiday, deserving that contract. I was certainly highly skeptical that many people who cover the NBA the same way. But you've seen the Pelicans build two bona fide all-star caliber players. We know Anthony Davis is MVP guy, but with Drew Holiday, I think you can see that you can hold on to those two guys, and they could be kind of the pillars of your franchise, regardless of what happens with the other players this offseason.
And both players, Larry, are in their primes. They're in their mid-20s. This is the prime age for them to excel in the NBA, and I think it's going to help them attract some free agents in the offseason if that's the direction the Pelicans go. We know there's a lot of questions, a lot of moving parts with the roster, but you have two pillars in place in Anthony Davis and Drew Holiday, are both, I would say, coming off the best years of their careers this season. So I think the future is bright, and the foreseeable future is bright for the Pelicans, and their fans should buy in. I think there's finally, enough positive things happening with the roster that you could see this team being a contender for the foreseeable future.
And there'll be plenty of enough time for you and me to discuss DeMarcus Cousins and Rajon Rondo, because that will be, those two guys specifically will be key cogs of where the Pelicans move forward, whether they stick with them, stick with one, or move to a different direction. So we'll get to that in another video down the line. So for Jeff Duncan, for Larry Holder, thanks for joining us.